My Weird School. Fast Facts. Geography. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pelot. Chapter 7. Natural Disasters. Well, it's about time. It's about time to talk about titanic tornadoes and enormous earthquakes and horrific hurricanes and terrible tsunamis. I've been waiting the whole book for this moment. Natural disasters are cool. Unless, of course, you happen to be in the middle of one. Then I suppose it's not so cool. Let's start with earthquakes. Did you know there are about 500,000 earthquakes every year? It's true. Most of them are hardly noticed by anybody. The others, well, those are the cool ones. It's hard to name the biggest earthquake of all, but one of the deadliest ones took place in Shaanxi, China, on January 23rd, 1556. It just about wiped out an area of 520 square miles. 66-foot cracks opened up in the ground. Mountains and rivers actually changed places. Hundreds of buildings were destroyed. 830,000 people died. That's nearly 1 million people. And people felt the tremors from that earthquake in 97 countries around the world. Why do we have earthquakes? In ancient Greece, they believed earthquakes were caused by the god of the sea, Poseidon. When he was angry, he'd hit the ground with his trident and set off a quake. Weird, right? But in old-time Japan, they believed that earthquakes were caused by a giant catfish named Namazu. Now, of course, thanks to science, we know that earthquakes are caused when elephants go bowling. Okay, that's a joke. Earthquakes are caused when the Earth's tectonic plates grind against each other. The place where two plates meet is called a fault. When the plates move, energy is built up. It needs to go somewhere, so it gets released along a fault. That energy radiates in all directions in what scientists call seismic waves. The strength of these waves can be measured using the Richter scale. It has the perfect name because it was devised by a guy named Charles Richter in 1935. The higher the number on the Richter scale, the bigger the earthquake. A medium-sized earthquake might measure 5. Each whole number is an increase of 10 times the previous number. So, a 6.2 earthquake is 10 times bigger than a 5.2 earthquake. The strongest earthquake ever measured was in Chile in 1960. It measured 9.5 on the Richter scale. You wouldn't want to be in Chile in 1960. You also wouldn't want to be in San Francisco in 1906. That was before they had the Richter scale. But most of the city was destroyed after an earthquake. Almost all the damage was done by fire after the earthquake cracked the gas pipes. San Francisco burned for 3 days and nights. Between December 1811 and February 1812, 3 big earthquakes hit the Midwest. They shook the earth so much that parts of the Mississippi River flowed backward. That must have been weird. The first quake in Arkansas could be felt as far away as New York City. The third one destroyed the town of New Madrid, Missouri. Almost all the world's earthquakes happen on the edges of the Pacific Ocean. The area is called the Ring of Fire, which is a pretty good name because most of the world's active volcanoes are there too. Japan and California are both in the Ring of Fire. Speaking of California, that's where the famous San Andreas Fault is. The tectonic plates there are moving about 1.5 inches every year. Eventually, San Francisco and Los Angeles will come together to make one really big place. But you don't have to worry. It will take 15 million years for the two cities to meet. Some scientists think animals can detect an earthquake before it happens by feeling weak tremors we can't sense. Other scientists think that animals detect electrical signals that are set off by the movement of underground rocks just before an earthquake hits. The average earthquake lasts about a minute, but it can be so powerful that it can release hundreds of times more energy than the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima in Japan at the end of World War II. Earthquakes can also set off landslides and avalanches, which would be really cool if they didn't cause so much damage. The same goes for when the center of the earthquake, called the epicenter, is located in the ocean. That's when you get a tsunami. Tsunamis. Tsunami is a Japanese word that means harbor wave. That's an understatement. In December 2004, there was a 9.0 earthquake in the Indian Ocean. It set off a tsunami that hit Thailand, Sri Lanka, parts of Indonesia, and the coast of Somalia in Africa. More than 200,000 people were killed in 14 countries. More than 1.5 million people were left homeless. This is a natural disaster you can see with your own eyes. With your parents' permission, go on YouTube and search for 2004 tsunami. Here's what happens with a tsunami. An earthquake occurs on the ocean floor. The shock waves ripple through the water and create huge waves. They might not be noticed in the middle of the ocean because the waves are very wide, but they move really fast. The closer they get to the coastline, the steeper those waves get. Before you know it, there's a 130-foot wall of water heading right for you. A tsunami can also be triggered by a landslide that drops into the sea, and a volcano can trigger a tsunami if its eruption is so huge it blows itself apart. Yikes! Speaking of volcanoes. A volcano occurs when there's a rupture in the crust of the earth and hot lava, ash, rocks, and gases escape from deep below the surface. During one eruption in the Philippines in 1991, ash flew 21 miles up in the air. The biggest volcanic eruption in recorded history happened when Indonesia's Tambora volcano suddenly let loose in 1815. People heard the explosion over 1,000 miles away. It caused tsunamis, and gas and ash filled the sky for so long that 1816 was known as the year without a summer. Crops stopped growing, causing a huge famine. As many as 100,000 people died worldwide. When hot liquid rock is below the surface of the earth, it's called magma. Once magma reaches the surface and starts to cool, it's called lava. But even lava can be as hot as 2,120 degrees Fahrenheit. As it cools, lava hardens and forms new rock. With enough lava, you get an island, or a whole chain of them, like the Hawaiian Islands. In 2015, the Kalbuco volcano in southern Chile erupted. It spewed ash miles up into the sky and set off lightning bolts. They had to cancel flights in and out of most of the countries of South America. The 60 tallest volcanoes on Earth are in South America. The highest one is Chimborazo in Ecuador. It's 20,700 feet above sea level. Some volcanoes are extinct, which means they're no longer active. Other volcanoes will go for many years without an eruption. These are called dormant volcanoes. That basically means they're asleep. But they can wake up anytime. The most dangerous volcanoes are those sleeping mountains that haven't erupted in centuries. People forget about them. They start building houses and farming nearby. And then, kaboom! The most famous of these was Mount Vesuvius. You may have heard of it. It's near Naples, Italy. Vesuvius had been sleeping for centuries, and then it suddenly woke up in the year AD 79. It must have been in a really bad mood. 1.5 million tons per second of stones, ash, and fumes shot into the sky. In seconds, the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum were buried under broiling ash, along with everyone who didn't get out in time. 16,000 people died. The weird thing about Pompeii was it was buried so deep that nobody found it for about 1,500 years. Then, when it was discovered and unearthed, it was like a snapshot of life during the time of the Roman Empire. The victims were found in the exact positions they were in when they died, often with terrified looks on their faces. Weird. Vesuvius has erupted lots of times since the big one, and as recently as 1944. It's the only volcano on the European mainland to erupt in the last 100 years. It's also considered to be one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world today because 3 million people live nearby. It could blow at any time. Hurricanes. Quick, what's the difference between a hurricane, a cyclone, and a typhoon? Give up? There is no difference. It was a trick question, so na boo boo on you. All those storms are the same thing. They're called hurricanes in the Atlantic and northeastern Pacific Ocean. They're called cyclones in the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean. And they're called typhoons in the northwestern Pacific. If you ask me, they should all be called the same thing, hurricanes. Hurricanes are usually described by how fast they move. A Category 1 hurricane moves 74 to 95 miles per hour. Not so bad. A Category 2 hurricane moves 96 to 110 miles per hour. You'd better hold on to your hat for one of those. A Category 3 hurricane moves 111 to 129 miles per hour. That's some serious wind. A Category 4 hurricane moves 130 to 156 miles per hour. You'd better look for another place to be. And finally, a Category 5 hurricane is the worst of all. It moves more than 157 miles per hour. Don't bother going home, because your house won't be there anymore. The deadliest hurricane to hit the United States was the Great Galveston Hurricane of 1900 on the Texas coast. It was so deadly because back then there was no early warning system for hurricanes. Between 6,000 and 12,000 people died. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina devastated the area around New Orleans and took at least 1,500 lives. Katrina first landed in Florida and dropped 10 to 15 inches of rain. Then it crossed the Gulf of Mexico, growing stronger and stronger. By the time it hit the Mississippi coast, storm surge waves were as high as 28 feet. That's taller than a 2-story house. Once they start moving over land, hurricanes begin to slow down. Eventually, they blow themselves out. A long time ago, hurricanes were named after saints: Santa Ana, San Felipe, and so on. During World War II, scientists started using women's names to describe hurricanes. That came to an end in 1978, when they started to use both men's and women's names. Tornadoes. A tornado is a whirling column of air that spins off from a single huge thundercloud. If you ever get the chance, get your parents' permission and watch the 1996 movie Twister. A cow gets picked up by a tornado and goes flying across a road. It only lasts a few seconds, but that is the coolest scene in movie history. Sometimes tornadoes hop around, completely destroying one house and leaving the house right next door to it untouched. Tornadoes can have winds as fast as 300 miles per hour. How fast is that? I'll tell you how fast it is. In 1931, a tornado in Mississippi picked up an 83-ton train and threw it 80 feet. A tornado in Oklahoma destroyed a motel, and after it was over, somebody found the motel sign in Arkansas. Another tornado in Oklahoma sucked up a small herd of cattle, carried it across the countryside, and then put it down unharmed in another field. In 1981, a tornado in Ancona, Italy, scooped up a baby from its carriage and set it down unharmed on the ground. In 1928, a tornado in Kansas plucked the feathers off chickens. Some people think that if you open the windows when a tornado hits, your house will be saved. That's a total myth. 9 out of 10 tornadoes happen in the United States. The southern plains of the central United States have so many tornadoes that the area is called Tornado Alley. It stretches from central Texas to northern Iowa, and from central Kansas and Nebraska east to western Ohio. But every part of the world has been hit by some kind of natural disaster. You don't want to live near an active volcano, of course. Coastal areas have to deal with tropical storms and tsunamis. If you go inland, there are tornadoes, blizzards, dust storms, and thunderstorms to worry about. And an earthquake can hit anywhere along a fault line. It's a mess. I guess we just have to deal with it. I still think that natural disasters are cool, as long as you're not in the middle of one. The ending. We'll leave you with one last weird fast fact about geography. In the Philippines, close to Manila, there's this little island in the middle of a lake. The lake is on another island, and that island is in another lake, and that lake is on another island. Maybe I'd better explain. First, there are the Philippines, which is a string of more than 7,000 islands in the Pacific Ocean. The largest island in the Philippines is called Luzon. On Luzon is a lake known as Lake Taal. Within that lake is an island, which is actually a volcano. It's called Volcano Island, so it has the perfect name. Following me so far? Okay, in the middle of Volcano Island is another lake called Main Crater Lake. And guess what's in the middle of Main Crater Lake? Another island. It's called Vulcan Point. So there's an island in a lake, on an island in a lake, on an island in the ocean. To make a long story short, geography is weird. Congratulations, you reached the end of the book. See, that wasn't so boring, was it? You just learned about 1,100 weird fast facts about geography. So now you know all there is to know. Wait, Arlo, there's more. What? More? There are a lot of facts about geography in this book, but we only had 167 pages. There wasn't room for all the weird facts in the world. If you want to see more of them, you should go to your school library or the public library. All you have to do is look for number 910 to 919 on the shelves. That's part of the Dewey Decimal System, where you'll find books about geography. Books? The library? Are you nuts? Books are boring, and the library is the most boring place in the history of the world. I'd rather stay home. You can even find weird fast facts about geography at home, Arlo. Just go to a computer and search for weird facts about geography, or volcanoes, or mountains, or anything. You could look up weird facts about doorknobs if you wanted to. Here, I'll do it for you. Brass doorknobs kill germs. It's true. Some metals like brass, copper, aluminum, iron, lead, and silver are known to kill bacteria and other microorganisms. I never would have known that if I hadn't looked it up on my computer. Your face looks like a doorknob. Very funny, Arlo. Anyway, you should poke around. It's fun. There's lots of cool information on the internet. All you have to do is look for it. You never know what you might find. The best part about looking things up is that grown-ups are really impressed when you tell them stuff they don't know. If you take just about any fast fact in this book and tell it to your mom or dad, they probably will be hearing it for the first time. It will blow their minds. You see, grown-ups think kids are a bunch of dumbheads who don't know anything, but they're wrong. So prove it and learn lots of new fast facts on your own. Maybe, if you work really hard at it, someday you'll know as many facts as Arlo and me. But it won't be easy.